The presenting sponsor for OnEducation is Classcraft. We're excited to announce Classcraft's new story mode, which makes it easy for educators to harness the power of stories. Episodes 1 and 2 of Season 1 are ready for you and your students to play today, and it's completely free. To learn more about Classcraft and the new story mode, simply visit classcraft.com/oneducation.
These textbook companies that try to make games now and turn their textbooks into games. And so now we're basically, it's chocolate-covered turds, for lack of better words. Welcome to On Education, part of the On Podcast Media Network. I'm Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will discuss whether schools need to teach the gaming of algorithms. This week, the Catholic education system received a couple of doses of really bad news, and we'll talk about that. And our guest this week is friend of the pod, Steve Isaacs.
So I saw you tweet today
about...
I'll tell you, and my first thought was, I just hope when I grow up that I can be as good at anything as you seem to be at Hearthstone.
I'm not quite that good yet, but
I don't know, man.
But today was a good run this morning. It's such a difficult game, and I know I've talked about it before on here, because everybody that's playing it at that higher level, everybody's really good. So
yeah,
you can really easily make one mental mistake and lose. You can also just get really unlucky and then lose. Or a combination of those things in the opposite way can also happen too. So it's a game of super ups and downs. Actually, it reminded me, Mike, I didn't even think about this as far as talking about it, but we might as well. Did you see that tweet that somebody tagged a few of us in, and it was about Ninja? At the competition one?
Yeah.
The competition one? Okay. Anyway, Ninja, everybody posts... Ninja's a esports gamer, and that's the reason why me and Mike know who he actually is. But anyway, he's one of the best in the world, and he's... we've talked about him on here because he was on the cover of ESPN, the magazine. Anyway, he posted this week a kind of semi-inspirational, something to talk about type of tweet, basically saying that if you come into a match, so this could be a game or a sport or whatever it might be, and you already come in with the attitude that it's just a game, that you're already halfway lost. You're already halfway towards losing. And I thought a couple of different things about that. One, I was like, this is the exact same competitiveness as like a Michael Jordan. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where this or Kobe Bryant.
I have the tweet. Do you want me to read the tweet?
Yeah, read the tweet.
I found it here.
Yeah.
The phrase, "it's just a game," is such a weak mindset. You are okay with what happened, losing, imperfection of a craft. When you stop getting angry after losing, you've lost twice. There's always something to learn and always room for improvement. Never settle.
Oh, yeah. So... a lot of different things about that. Number one,
there's so much going on in that tweet.
It made me think, it made me really, again, we've talked about this, that not only is esports becoming the same, the same popularity, let's call it, as athletics at the professional level.
Yeah, totally.
But the people participating in those things, so example, Ninja, who is a professional esports athlete, he also has the same type of characteristics as these super competitive athletes, as I described Michael Jordan, whoever else it might be. Mm-hmm. And then below it, I don't know if you saw, but there's a guy who plays Hearthstone, and his name is Brian Keebler. And he's played Hearthstone for, I think, since the beginning when it was, barely came around or whatever it might be. And he's played Magic the Gathering, a couple of other different types of games, and he's really, really good. But more than anything, he's really entertaining. And he's super well known for not getting upset after losing. He's the anti, throwing your controller and throwing a fit, kind of going raging, kind of that type of thing.
Do you want me to read his tweet?
Yeah, read his.
Okay. I feel like the strive for excellence sentiment here is good. But one of the most important things for people to get good at when they play games competitively is losing.
Yes.
Because they're going to do it a lot. You can strive for excellence without getting angry when you lose.
So, you know what's so awesome about this whole... Both of them are gamers that are professionals. They both make a living off of this. And they both are, Brian Keebler, I know for sure, is in his mid to late 30s, and he's got a family, and he does really well. Ninja, obviously, is one of the highest paid esports athletes ever, and there's actually these discussions going on, and these discussions then can be carried forward and had at the high school level, at the middle school level, and we could start having these exact same types of things that you would see only in athletics previously. Mm-hmm. So I love that. I love that there's a conversation about it. I don't even care about the sentiment of whatever's happening, because there's value of both of their comments.
There's totally value in both comments.
Yes, there's value in both, and really what it does more than anything else is solidifies esports as something that's, number one, ultra competitive. It's very tough to win and get good at, but it's also a lot of subtleties there of like, how do we actually conduct ourselves in gaming, in competition,
Yeah.
It's freaking awesome. I love that.
I love the life lesson in Brian's tweet, because one of the things that I always, when I do PD, especially Minecraft PD, but when we talk about esports and about especially when I get into those talks about kids who say they want to be YouTubers or streamers and encouraging teachers not to discourage those desires, I always remind the teachers to remind students that streaming is hard work.
Yes.
And that it's not easy, and that none of these people that are famous that that their kids watch on TV got it, for free or for nothing. It's taken tons and tons of effort, and tons of losing in some cases. And I think that there's great lessons from Ninja here, and there's awesome lessons about digital citizenship and sportsmanship.
That's what I would say. Yeah, it is. There it is.
From these tweets. And so it's packed full of tons of like interesting things that you can talk about that are absolutely fascinating. And so I was glad that I saw it, but I was busy. I was in meetings that day. But then Michael Cohen tagged us in it. And that's where the conversation started, and that was a lot of fun. It was a fascinating thing to talk about. We want to, before I get into this, there's some pretty heavy topics here coming up. And if you have dealt with like trauma or especially sexual abuse and stuff like that, you might want to skip over for the next few minutes. Feel free, that's fine. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, so the Catholic Church was already going through a pretty rough spell with tons and tons of sexual abuse allegations. This has been going on forever, and it's really coming to a head kind of right now. But in the news this week has been two, I think, absolutely interesting situations that do have like really interesting implications for education that I want to discuss, because I almost also because I want to follow them and see how they progress. So the first one comes from a Catholic school teacher in Toronto. Paulo De Buono read a book to his grade 5 and 6 kids called The Boy Who Cried Fabulous. And he got absolutely attacked. Vicious groups, operatives, political operatives, singling him out. and it was, I just wanted to give it some airtime. We're going to link the article in the show notes, and I would love, for our listeners to read this, and Paulo needs some support. He needs some backup, friends. And I've already kind of weighed in, on Twitter and said, listen, dude, if you need help, if you need to talk to someone, if you need anything, you let me know at the very least. Because, I guess, so, and we've talked about this a bit on Twitter, the Catholic school system in Ontario is publicly funded.
Mm-hmm. Which is way different than the United States.
Taxpayer money. Mm-hmm. So there's the public school system, and then there's the Catholic school system, and both you can choose in your taxes where your education portion goes. So, we have so the Catholic school system isn't going after him. It's all of these ancillary far right and heavily religious groups that are going after him, but they're definitely trying to get him fired from his job as an educator. And it's just unacceptable, especially from an organization that receives its funding from taxes. So there's a petition online to encourage the Toronto Catholic District School Board not to, let Paulo go. And I just wanted to offer words of support because it's such a horrible situation to find yourself in, to just be reading a book to your students that expresses issue that talks about issues regarding sexual orientation and gender identity, and to then be just absolutely attacked viciously for it, both on Twitter and everywhere else, is awful.
What's crazy though, Mike, is that book, The Boy Who Cried Fabulous, as I went through it and read the commentary on it and listened to him on the local news broadcast, it actually never mentions sexual orientation. All it is it's a story about a kid who likes to use the word fabulous, and everybody is against him. By everybody, his whole family can't believe that he uses the word fabulous. You could derive all kinds of meanings from it. Basically, it's a kid who wants to be his own individual self, and can you translate that to a sexual orientation or a bunch of other things? Sure, yeah, you can. And what it's basically saying is that you can be your own self, and we all should care about you, and we need to care about everybody as individuals. And so it's fantastic. It's crazy, though, how these different groups have gotten, really aggressive and basically targeting him to terminate him from his position, which is, it's awful. Crazy. Yeah, and in the United States, it's hard for us for people listening in the United States that know Catholic schools. I know Catholic school educators. People get fired in those specific schools for a wide variety of things that I find insane, but that are part of the contract that you sign with a specific Catholic school. So going into it that, for example, if you are not married and you are a woman and you become impregnated, you're going to have a baby, but you're not married, they could fire you for that, which is just crazy. Like, in my mind, it just blows me away, but it's part of what you end up signing, as far as signing on to this specific
part
school.
Of the package of being with a
but
faith-based
we don't
school,
fund our schools, our religious schools publicly. So they are all privately funded, so they can basically work outside of the scope of what would happen as far as in a public school system. So crazy. That's all I can say. So,
and the other awful story that has literally just come out this weekend is about Jean Vanier, who is, a luminary of the Catholic Church, like someone that was idolized by the Catholic Church, and a Canadian known for his charitable work, especially with people with intellectual disabilities. Was there was a report published that says that he had sexual abuse and sexual relationships with a number of people, and abused at least 6 women between 1970 and 2005. And obviously it's awful for the victims, and there may be more. They're not saying that there's not. What I find is really, I actually know, and I was telling you this, Glenn, I actually know students. I taught students. There's Jean Vanier Catholic High School in Richmond Hill, Ontario. There is another Jean Vanier Catholic High School in Cambridge, Ontario. And there is a Jean Vanier Catholic High School in Sudbury in Northern Ontario. There are 3. That's just the 3 that are in, within a couple hours drive of me. There are Jean Vanier schools named after this person all over the place.
Wow.
And I'm absolutely I'm very interested in talking to someone or finding out what's going to happen within the school communities. Obviously, there's parents and administrators and whatever that are going to come back to Jean Vanier School in Richmond Hill on Monday morning and say, what do we do now with the name of our school? Because we certainly can't have the name of our school named after someone who sexually assaulted at least 6 women.
Crazy.
We have recently had a conversation with a school that was named after someone who's alive still and idolized in the community, a legend, the Justice Allen Page. Mm-hmm. And I immediately thought of that, in the sense that, it's a complex issue, even when it's someone who's like an idol to people. And the crazy thing is that until yesterday, Jean Vanier was, like I said, idolized by the world for what he did. So I actually texted the parent that I still have conversation with every once in a while, and they have a daughter that goes there still, and they didn't even know. They hadn't seen the news, so I shared it with them, and then I just asked them to do me a favor and keep me I'm interested in being in the loop on the conversations at the school and the school climate, and what the administration is going to say about the namesake of their school and what they do now, because we've seen with Justice Allen Page that schools sometimes embody their namesakes, and when your namesake then
does this,
it comes out as a betrayal almost. What do you do? It's complicated to coin a phrase, and unfortunate and sad, to be perfectly honest. So it's a pretty bad situation. And I'm sorry that we have to even think about it, but it has implications for all of those students and all of those parents and all of those community members, and all of those teachers who have to walk through the doors and see the name on the sign, and especially if there were educators in those buildings that had been abused or assaulted or are victims themselves, to then have to go into a building named after someone who was who has this record now. I can't imagine, to be perfectly honest. So really, really interested in how things are going to unfold there, for sure. you've come across a video game that I've never even heard of.
Someone had mentioned it before, and I watched the trailer, and I was like, I don't even know what this is. But I just read an article about it, and it might be PlayStation exclusive, but what it's hyped up as, and as I was reading just kind of a review of it, of the game itself, is that it gives the player the ability basically to create games within this gaming platform without the complexities of coding and so on and so forth. And then you can share your created games with a community of other gamers. Now, this happens in other things, like I was thinking about Roblox, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of Roblox things are created by users and then put onto this platform. In Minecraft, tons of content and extra features. It's the reason why Minecraft it continues to be so amazing, is that the players basically recoded the game and made tons of other games within the game itself, and made it look more beautiful and made it look funny and so on and so forth, and did all of these things basically playing with the code. And in this case, this game called Dreams, I think it's only for PlayStation, at least right now, allows the players to create all kinds of different games. And the ones that I was looking at are everything from a 3D platform gamer to just a two-dimensional kind of jumping around type of game to everything else in between. It looked amazing. If that's actually the stuff that you can build, and it touts itself as very easy to kind of get going with it and quick to be able to create the levels in the games, whatever, and then easily be able to share them with a community. So we're definitely going to keep tabs on this. I don't have a PlayStation, but maybe it'll be an excuse for getting one.
Nice.
As research.
I think this is the company that made Little Big Planet.
Could be. Because it reminds me of that kind of, the aesthetics remind me of Little Big Planet, definitely.
Yeah,
so it could be that.
I think that this is that company, Media Molecule.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned or asked if this was the next. Yeah, they did make Little Big Planet, but you had asked if this is the next Minecraft in the show notes, which I thought was interesting because we've actually talked about another game and framed it as the next Minecraft, and we're still waiting.
Waiting
for Hightail to come out. And the only person I know who has played it is Stephen Reed. Yes. Unfortunately. So I need to talk to Stephen Reed about it, but we also just need to get our hands on that because Hightail is a lot like Minecraft, and made by people who made like the Hightail mod for Minecraft. That's where they came from. They made mods for Minecraft,
and they're like, we're gonna make our own game.
We're gonna make our own game now. So super interested in Dreams for sure. Is it out now?
I think it's about to come out. So there's some people that got to test it out. Yep. So it's about to come out right now. So nice. I would like to hear from people and see what they think. And more descriptions of it, because it's still a little bit of a mystery. But everything I've heard, I was like, oh, this sounds like, our guest this week, Steve Isaacs. They get to play test this in their classes and iterate with it and build and design things. I want to hear more about what it's all about and how easy it is to actually build and share.
So it looks to me like it was released last week.
Okay.
February 14th. So we'll have to confirm that, and maybe maybe I have a PS4, so
nice.
I'll download it and see what's up.
Okay.
Because that would be exciting. Tell me about Pocket Points.
So a teacher this week that I was working with said, hey, I'm going to try this thing out that I used to use. She's a first-year teacher at our school that I used to use at the university. And she said it's called Pocket Points. And I'm like, I've never heard of this. I don't even know what you're talking about. So she showed it to me. And at the university level, what it basically does is So you're in a college class and you're a professor and you're trying to keep your students, just like high school students or any other kind of students, off of their phones and focused on kind of what's happening as far as in class.
I played Civilization in university.
Yeah, but you don't want to be like,
so bad,
hardcore about it. So you don't want to be like, no phones in here or whatever it might be. You're adults. You need to be able to monitor yourself. Right? That kind of a thing, a better attitude as far as that. So what this professor, and I think several of them were doing, is encouraging the students to use this Pocket Points app. And at the university level, at least, and this is kind of what is interesting to me, and I think we should pull this model into high schools, is for staying off of your cell phone for a specific period of time. So that the professor would set up their class period, and it would be 1 hour block from 1 to 2 o'clock. And they would log you in as you're a class member, and you would download the app and volunteer to do it. And then you'd press a button, and she showed me how to do it. And it says, I'm ready to begin. And it would do a countdown timer and lock your phone. Now you can always press a button and say, I give up, right? But if you manage to stay off your phone for those 60 minutes, pushed out to you would be all of these local vendor coupons. So Chipotle, McDonald's, whatever it might be.
That's the quickest way to a student's heart right there. Chipotle.
I was thinking about that. It's like half price burritos, 2 for 1 this, $1 burgers, free drinks at Burger King.
I'll pay attention to anything you say for half price burritos.
Dude, I was listening, and she's like, we all did it. So we were all, we were serious about it. We're trying to game the system or cheat it or whatever it might be. We were serious about it. She's like, so I was thinking maybe I could do something like that as far as in a high school. Now, the way that they push it there, and we'll link it there for the audience here, they are talking about gamifying. So they're talking about something, the rewards would be based about something that you would have as far as in your class. Drop the lowest quiz grade, so on and so forth. Just remember that the best gamification has to be, as far as that carrot, has to really be something that the students really do care about, but that doesn't destroy what you're trying to do in class. So I always tell people, be careful with reward systems that affect grades, for example.
Outcomes, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's okay for it to be something that's outside. So, for example, a coupon that you get to have from a local businesses, and it's so smart because Pocket Points didn't pay the business to anything. Actually, the businesses are paying Pocket Points to basically advertise. They're saying, hey, student, do you feel like going to Chipotle? Here's a half-price coupon. They're like, oh, that makes me want to actually go to this specific place. I'll tell my parents or I'll go myself, etc.
Nice. Really,
really interesting concept. So I'm interested to hear if more teachers are actually doing this, and then what does it actually look like as far as in a classroom, as far as high schools, or middle, and then at the elementary level, how you would change that, or maybe it's not as big of a deal. But at the high school level, at all the schools that I've been at, cell phones probably is at the top of the list as far as classroom management issues that teachers are trying to figure out, get their minds around, like, how do I do this so that it's respectful of my students, and basically saying, I'm going to treat you as the adult that you're becoming. You need to, you got to be able to monitor yourself without basically kind of just letting them do whatever they want, kind of thing. Yeah. So it's a really interesting concept. I want to definitely, if you're out there, you use this, connect with us. I want to hear more about what you're doing.
Super cool.
Yes.
That's awesome. Hey, so our friend Nate Green put out a pretty interesting tweet. That it's funny because I've been thinking a lot about algorithms lately. So it was funny that he brought this up, this idea that asking the question, should schools teach students how to game algorithms? And I'm not exactly sure what specific algorithms he was referring to, other than, referencing a couple articles. and stuff like that. But like, listen, if someone can tell me how to game the YouTube algorithm just a little bit, I would be happy to listen to some advice, because I could use some algorithm gaming for YouTube. But Nate has some other ideas, I guess, related to, what do you think? I guess this is like a really interesting digital citizenship perspective from a bad place, but it's also, so what I thought of the first time I thought of this was the narrative surrounding hacking and hackers, quote unquote hackers. And we had that conversation, remember, about a year and a half ago. We talked about the kid who got into like the security system of the school, and is being like really singled out, like in bad ways, for doing something that almost every kid would have probably done. And teachers were so dumb that they couldn't protect their
their passwords on their screens,
left their password right on the screen. So yeah, of course a 12-year-old's gonna be a 12-year-old. In some ways, right? And you don't got to like send the kid to jail for it. Let's be real here. But the idea that there's, there is good hacking, there is ethical hacking, and certainly I think that the narrative surrounding hacking, the word and like the connotations, it's not a pejorative anymore, I guess is the best way to say it. When you're a hacker, that's not a bad thing necessarily anymore. And it's not automatically seen as a bad thing to be a hacker anymore. And so, that was the first thing I thought of. What did you think of when you thought of this?
So I thought of all of the different systems that are in play right now as adults that many of us learned too late, or we never learned the lessons about how so many things are set up. And there's these algorithms that you can basically manipulate in order to end up on the good side. And usually it has to do with finances. The first thing, though, I was thinking of, if you're a high school student, how do you break the algorithm or get into the right side of the algorithm of college entrance? How do you basically pass? They tell you, like, there's a specific test score you have to get. You have to write this essay, so on and so forth. But we already know, we've talked about on the show, that a lot of the stuff is being done, is automated. And once you pass the automation process, and that's kind of what the link to this article is that Nate was linking there, is that in order to get to the next step, you have to pass the automated part of the algorithm. So if you don't even do that part right or set the things up correctly there, you will never have a real person read your application. So this for college entrance. I was thinking also about credit scores. The credit scores algorithm in the United States isn't about just being a good person. It's not just being like, hey, I'm going to do the right thing, etc., whatever it might be. It actually has to do with specific things that you must do it. And those things affect your credit score either positively or negatively. And some of those things we don't even know about. A lot of us still don't even know about what those actual things are that really do move credit scores in one direction or another. He was talking about job searches where basically you would go in, and I've heard of this happening at many big time businesses, or for example, the Mayo Clinic is really huge here in Minnesota, and it's such a huge system, tons of hospitals all around Minnesota, and tons of employees, that in order to get past basically the algorithm part and get to an actual person that reads your application, you have to, in your cover letter and on your resume, look at the job description. I mean, read the job description. They'll tell you, basically you can watch YouTube videos about this, how to pull keywords and basically insert them into your cover letter and your resume, though they may not exactly belong there. That's insane.
I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something.
You probably know this.
If your cover letter for the Peel District School Board, which is the second biggest school board in Ontario, one of the 4 or 5 biggest in Canada. If your cover letter to apply for a job at the district does not have the word differentiation in it, it will not get seen by a human.
That's what I'm saying. That's
it will
exactly
not get
what I'm
seen by
talking
a
about.
human. You have to have that word. There are other words too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know all of them. I know differentiation was in my cover
Was one
letter.
of them. Yeah.
Because I was told to put it in there.
Yes.
By someone who told me your resume will not be seen by a person. I don't know if that's the case anymore, because obviously it's been quite a while since I applied for a job at the Peel District School Board. And my wife's been there for 12 years, so she doesn't need something like that anymore. But I know for a fact that there are a number of boards in Southern Ontario that are having their resumes, because of how many people apply for these damn jobs. Mm-hmm. Also, you'll get, you open up the supply teacher, the what do you call them? Just substitute teacher list to apply for a substitute teacher job in Southern Ontario, and like 6,000 people will apply for that job.
Crazy.
So I understand the idea of needing some sort of filtering. But there are definitely words that those filters are looking for.
Yeah.
And gaming those filters there's actually a Facebook group. I don't care anymore. I can tell you that there's a Facebook group, a private Facebook group for people who want to learn how to do well in the York District School Board interviews.
Really? So they basically help you. Yep. They're like, here's some of the questions that I received. Here are the questions
you're going to get asked. Here's good responses. I was in that group.
Social media at its best, or is it? I think it's important. There. You would so if you didn't do that, right? If you didn't get into the things and you didn't have that advantage, basically being able to do whatever you need to go ahead and do to be able to go ahead and at least do well as far as the interviews, or even just get an interview, that's insane, but totally makes sense because we have all of these systems in place. So the great question by Nate Green is, should we be teaching our kids how to game all of these different algorithms that exist, that will be at the forefront of a bunch of the things that they try to go out and do in life, from getting a job to getting good credit to getting into schools and so on and so forth. There's probably more. I can't even think of them all right now, but should we be teaching them how to go out and do that? That's a very interesting question. Ethical dilemma, but interesting.
Well, you'll have a chance to weigh in on this question in chat on education, because we'll make sure that that's one of the questions, and we'll give Nate some credit and get him to weigh in on what he thinks, and we'll have a really good... Actually, we should give a shout-out to the chat, because the chat was absolutely phenomenal this week. Very full, spirited, super interesting, really good conversations that, to be honest, are still... Like, it's while we're recording on a Saturday this week, we normally record on a Monday. So the chat was yesterday morning, Friday morning, and, we were still talking about it this morning.
Yes.
On Twitter.
Yes.
So, like, the conversations haven't stopped, and it's been over 24 hours now. So I guess that's how you have a good chat, I suppose.
Yes.
That people are still
Keeps
talking.
Going.
And it's not just like, it's not like fluff. It's legitimate, real conversation. So, that was literally the whole point of starting a chat for us anyways. So, mission accomplished there, I guess. When we come back, the bests. And this week, 5 things in education we need to stop doing, like, right now. So stay tuned.
OnEducation is brought to you by Fidgets. Fidgets are interactive USB sensors that bring your code to life. There's no soldering or wiring required. Simply plug in a Fidget sensor, write code in your favorite language, and watch your ideas come alive. Fidgets are used by thousands of STEM professionals globally and are now available for computer science students. Simply go to bit.ly Fidgets on Education to get your introductory kit that includes a free sensor worth over $50. That's bit.ly Fidgets on Education. Welcome back to OnEducation and welcome to the best. Every week, Mike and I take you through a list of our top things, from books to games, from people to ideas.
So there's a lot of great things going on in education, to be sure, but let's be honest, there's also some stuff we could really say goodbye to like anytime soon. This week, 5 things in education we need to stop doing now.
And I was thinking, 5 is probably not even enough.
No, there's more.
This is a chat question,
stopped.
too. This is one where people can just kind of weigh in and let us know what all of the things, because there's a lot of things. A lot of the news that we talk about are things that we just wish we could just stop. But we had to narrow it down.
Sure.
Otherwise, we'd have many hours of discussion.
Our top stops. Wow, that rhymes.
Yes. So I guess number 1, but it doesn't have to be number 1. It's good. We got to just say bye to homework. I was thinking about the amount of homework that my 7th grade son brings home, and the amount of work that my 2nd grade son is actually doing also at home, and the value of that specific work is what I really am questioning. So we've talked about it before.
Yep.
If it's a project that involves kind of getting us involved in my sons' lives and in their passions, and it just happens to spill over that they're so pumped about doing whatever it is that they were doing at school that they really want to continue it at home. Of course, we want that to continue. That's awesome.
Sure.
But the stuff that Lysander, my oldest son, is actually doing as far as at home on a daily basis is very similar to the things that I was doing, a long time ago. 25 plus years ago. And it's basically kind of this worksheet type of stuff. And the part that really is frustrating to me is both my wife and I are educators. And I find myself sometimes where I can't actually help him because I don't even know the reference, the specific math, or whatever it might be, because I haven't practiced it in so long, and whatever it might be. But then I was thinking to myself, I'm actually here at home, and I'm a teacher, for God's sakes, and I'm having issues trying to go ahead and help them. What if their mom or dad is working the second shift? They made dinner for them. They had to go to work. The kid is there at home by themselves or whatever it might be, or limited amount of things. What if they are a second language learner? What if a whole bunch of other things where there's just all of these other priorities, and this work gets counted as part of their grade, as far as part of the assessment is a thing. And we all know that it's just bull. It hasn't shown to be an effective way of not practicing, of getting more, learning at a higher level. Nope, it does. We've shown that it actually just shows economic levels, economic statuses, and it does in my case because both my wife and I just happen to live this life where we do work in, like, let's call it a quote unquote normal day, and in the afternoons we can help our kids. We're educators, so we understand that we would want our kids to succeed at school, so we're trying to help them out with whatever might be.
Sure, yeah.
But it still pisses me off every single time I look at the stuff. And I mean, thank goodness my wife is there, because she pushes me aside and lets basically lets my sons do the things that they need to go ahead and do, and then make sure that I don't get my negative feelings out there as far as towards them, because it's not their faults, obviously. And I don't even know if it's the teachers exactly their fault. It's a culture thing that we just need to freaking break. We need to break free of it and stop doing this.
Yeah, totally. So I don't think I've ever seen a textbook that I liked.
Textbooks.
And it gets worse. as the years have gone on, frankly, to be honest, even the textbooks in some cases are getting worse. Even, like, to be honest, the old textbooks are awful. Like, I've seen some textbooks, especially the old ones, that are like racist as hell.
Oh yeah.
In some cases, completely like insensitive to to tons of different groups and ethnicities and you know, so old textbooks are awful, and we know like there are still schools out there that are using textbooks from the 70s and 80s for sure, guaranteed. Like, weigh in, chat, because there are definitely schools that are using textbooks that are 20, 30 years old still, and those are awful. But even new textbooks, and these textbook companies that try to, like, you know, we talk about this all the time, these textbook companies that try to make games now, that turn their textbooks into games. And so now we're basically, you know, it's chocolate-covered turds, for lack of better words.
It's not even broccoli.
Right.
Broccoli would be too good.
No, it's polish and poo just to make it look like it's something tangible, but we all know it's not. You know, there's nothing. It's administrators not trusting their teachers to be creative with materials and resources and ideas and tools and methods that don't require kids to sit and read a book, you know, to do learning. You know, learning from a textbook is a mile wide and an inch deep. And learning that involves getting your hands dirty and you know, being in there and doing things and building things and making things and presenting things and sharing things. That's where, you know, you get real meaningful learning outcomes and experiences. And textbooks just simply don't provide that at all.
One of the best examples out there, that if anybody wants to go to look at this, when I did my master's degree, I did it on the flipped learning method and whether or not that was effective. And anyway, there was a school in Byron, Minnesota. It just happens to be in southeastern Minnesota, where I actually used to live, and they were referenced in one of the studies and many studies that have been done on the flipped classroom and blended learning and so on and so forth. But the best part and the most interesting part was there was a group of math teachers, and basically they couldn't afford the new textbooks. You know, they couldn't actually buy them. And so they were like, what are we going to do? Our old textbooks are horrible. What are we going to do? So the district actually paid them, and they spent a summer working together as a department, and they created their own textbook curriculum from the beginning to the end. And not only the curriculum, but all of the flipped videos that went along with the curriculum.
Brilliant.
So that it actually, and all of the practice problems, and related them to things that they knew were specific to their population, their students, and their, whatever it might be, their things that were going on with them. And they continue to revamp that curriculum. Yeah. Super successful. And I mean, the district did end up paying somebody. They paid the teachers to create the curriculum, create all the resources, and then go ahead and deliver those and kind of revamp them each year. So you can't do that with everything, but you know what? There's this thing called Google nowadays, where there's a lot of stuff out there, and as educators, we can become curators. And that's where me and you, when we talk about, for example, Schoology as a learning management system, the reason why we love that platform is you can curate materials, the best of the best materials from all of the different resources that are out there, pull them all together, and then basically create your own curriculum, your own textbook. Who needs a textbook
when you can do that?
You did that exact same thing. You knew what you needed your students, you wanted them to go ahead and do as far as the outcomes, and you created the curriculum that fit for computer science. And it basically, what it took was time, a passionate educator, and basically a wherewithal as far as how am I going to put this together, what's my end goal, and so on and so forth. So we can do that. Textbooks sucky. Yes, let's do that. The next thing that I was thinking about too, Mike, on this, and we've talked about this topic, and my God, I get so furious about this one. Taking away recess as a punishment. And it's still being done in schools. It still happens right now. And I would say it's actually more commonplace than the opposite. It's actually more uncommon for schools to not do this. So stop taking away recess as a way of punishing, as a consequence for whatever it might be as far as behavior management. It sucks. And I would say, as I've said before on the podcast, and you agree with me, we need to have more recess time. Unstructured play is freaking awesome for kids of all ages. They need to get away from the thing, be able to socialize together, physically active, run around, do some different things, whatever it might be. Have some different places for them to be able to go ahead and do those things. Yeah. Unstructured play is freaking phenomenal. Don't take away recess from kids as punishment.
I just realized, so I was telling you off air that my wife and I just realized that this is so in Ontario it's called EQAO. It's the standardized test. Yes. They do it in grade 3 and in grade 6 in the K-8 system, I think. They do some other small tests, but the main years are 3 to 8. And we just realized that, so Isaac's in grade 6, so this is an EQAO year for Isaac, which means that his entire schooling is entirely different than every other freaking year because they are teaching to the stupid damn test.
God, that pisses me off.
And we didn't click with us until a week ago, and Cheryl said to me, "Hey, I just realized he's in grade 6. That means he's taken that test." And, so we're going to have a legitimate conversation about, because you can opt out of standardized tests in Ontario. You said that you can do that in Minnesota as well. Listen, you've heard us rant about if you listen to the podcast, this is probably, if we were ranking these, this might be number 1.
This is number 1. Right.
So, standardized tests just need to freaking go away pretty damn quick. And they hurt kids. They don't help. The only thing that they do is provide politicians with political ammunition.
Yes.
And talking points. And they're being right now. I swear to God, right now, like in this Ontario teachers, the labor issues. Standardized testing scores are being used by the progressive conservative government as talking points, calling schools failing schools and all of this nonsense. And then they say, well, how do you know schools are failing? And they'll say, well, look at the math scores or whatever. And it's all that they do is, and they provide the funding numbers in a lot of cases for schools. They don't in Ontario, I don't think, anyways. But in a lot of cases, funding and money comes from your results in some places, and certainly ancillary funding sometimes does. And if you've ever seen a kid, and I've seen them, who are like throwing up before they walk into a test because they're so scared and nervous about what they're going to do and how they're going to do, and then throwing up when they see the results because they're worried that their parents are going to be in private schools there are standardized tests as well, and I've seen those are the experiences I have directly, where the results, you get the results like a couple weeks later, and they just give you them, hand them to you on a sheet of paper, and you have kids crying in the hallways, especially at a private school where their parents pay $20,000 to send you to a school, and then you bomb a standardized test because you were so worked up about it that you had a bad sleep the night before, you didn't eat because you were scared, and then you threw up before you take the damn test, and then you bomb the test, and then you get it back, and you're bawling your eyes out. I've seen it. I've been there. I've comforted students who were crying because they thought their parents would practically disown them as a result of standardized tests. If there's nothing else in this world of education that needs to go away, it's standardized tests, and it needs to happen now.
Yes. Okay, so the final one, at least for this segment.
We could do a whole we could do
a whole show about this. And I'm super passionate about this one too. Gosh, that's the reason we had to put it on here. I'm tired of my kids and kids around the country being forced to eat lunch in 20 minutes or less. It is a disgusting stupid thing that we do because we just want schedules. That's it. We want to be able to schedule things, and we want to be able to drive it in, put it within an actual schedule. So we want to make it 20, 25 minutes of devouring your food, not socializing any, which we all know. Isn't that a great part about eating meals together? That's it. That's the part where you actually are sitting down with somebody, and the meal is actually accentuated. It's made better by the conversation you get to have.
Of course.
And you know that article that we read the other day where the lady was followed the fifth grade class around and she ate lunch. Remember, she was talking about how they were yelling at her and she had to eat her lunch super quick and she had been sitting all day long in a quiet class being told to shut up. And finally they have a space where they could actually talk, and somebody was asking about what her favorite whatever was, but it was super cute. And then they started getting yelled at because they were whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden lunch was over with. These super short lunches they're not healthy. Kids need recess and a time to be able to go ahead and decompress from what we're talking about. We put a lot of pressure on kids in school to whether or not you want to believe it, we do. And they need to have times where we do it ourselves as adults. We have mandated lunches as part of our contracts, non-duty Do you think our kids don't deserve 30 minutes of
course
duty-free time? It's the same thing.
30 minutes for lunch.
Yeah.
30 minutes for recess.
Yes. And do that so that they are that much healthier. They get to experience lunch, eat all their stuff. My youngest son it's the worst part of the day. I told you before, because of the time. It's not enough time to eat, and they are yelling all the time. And he eats slow. It's not that he's trying to be defiant. He's the last thing as far as being a defiant kid. He's just doesn't eat super fast, which is actually
he's also like, how old is he? Like 7, 8?
Yeah, he's 7. It's like
he's 7.
That's a very healthy thing. It's fine to take your time as far as thing. He's like he's eating his lunch, whatever, and then he brings home basically 3/4 of his lunch. He's like, I just didn't have time to eat it. So he's eating after school. He's really like hungry then, of course. Just didn't have a chance to eat. Wow. It's like short lunches. Come on, people. We have to figure out a better way to do this thing.
Short lunches can go away anytime soon. Yes. Am I right? Or am I right?
You're right. So everybody, you can always come back to this segment of The Best by checking out our blog at OnEducationPodcast.com or watching it on YouTube. Just search for On Education and check out our playlist. Do you want to support us on education? Check out our Patreon site at patreon.com/oneducationpod.
When we come back, front of the pod, Steve Isaacs. Stay tuned.
On Education is brought to you by the Badge Summit. Do you have plans to attend the ISTE conference this summer? Come one day early and participate in the best hidden gem conference in the United States. Badge Summit 2020 will take place in Costa Mesa, California on June 22nd. There will be many amazing educators to collaborate with on topics such as digital badges, credentials, gamification, and more. To learn more about the Badge Summit, simply visit bit.ly/Badge Summit.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Our guest for this week doesn't really need much of an introduction since he's name dropped on almost every episode, and certainly someone that we've talked to a number of times on the podcast previously. Steve Isaacs is with us this week. Welcome to the podcast, friend.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here as always.
As always, we were laughing. I think it was just recently, weren't we talking about the commercial we did at FETC, not last year, but the year before, where we were in that little side room and we did that Classcraft ad. I was laughing about that the other day. I was telling that story, how we kind of wrote it on the fly and then I yelled to interrupt you.
I think we talked about my million quests that I have on Classcraft.
Million quests for Classcraft. So we're here today. We actually have something to talk about. We didn't just want to have you on because for randomness, because we love talking to you, and we talk all the time. But it's important that we talked about this on the podcast. There's a lot going on right now with Epic Games and with Fortnite, and you and I in particular are pretty heavily involved in that. So we wanted to get you on the podcast because you're kind of leading the charge with this. They sponsored FETC. They had the some banners and stuff in the concourse, and we did some sessions sponsored by them as well, which was pretty sweet. So maybe let's start at the start. What got their attention? I think that's the first. That's, I guess, the great place to start, because we know some of the backstory is that I had been talking to them for quite a while, but it took the Steve Isaacs touch to make some of this happen. So tell us a little bit about what got this going, because I think that's a fun story.
Sure. So, well, it goes back to last school year, and I'll share just a little context. I teach game design and development, and my students typically have the opportunity to choose what tool they'd like to create games with, and we use a variety of tools. So a lot of what I teach is, I teach the iterative design process, but I like to put the learning in the kids' hands and not feel like I have to be the expert in teaching them the tool per se. So I was kind of waiting somewhat patiently once Fortnite Creative Mode was released for kids to start asking to use it. And interestingly, last year, I had one class in particular. I thought all my kids would be asking, and one class that asked, so I figured this was a great way to start. And those kids, of course, can we use Fortnite Creative to create our game? And I didn't know if I could give an immediate yes. I felt like, sort of with Fortnite and, at the time, people thinking of Fortnite primarily as a battle royale shooter game, I felt like we had to at least get some degree of permission. I teach in a middle school. So I encouraged the kids that had asked to, write a letter to our principal and kind of state their case, which was a very strong case, because the reality is creative mode, there's nothing about it that means that you have to make, or even are inclined to make violent games or whatever you want to call it, if you're concerned with the inappropriateness, but it's a true sandbox environment. So they pointed a lot of great things out like that. They, offered to, get parent permission if they were going to use it. And of course, they made it clear that they understood what was appropriate for school and were going to abide by that. So they drafted, this great email, which is on my blog. And my principal was terrific. I wasn't sure, what the response would be initially, like whether it would be like whether the word Fortnite would get her attention or what. But her primary concern was things like making sure it was, that student privacy was respected and that it was COPPA compliant, which always makes me think of Copacabana. But anyway, and FERPA compliant and all, and which it is. So so luckily, Epic knows what they need to do, in those regards, whether they thought they were creating a product for schools or anything, So that was kind of the start, and I got super excited when I saw these kids, what they were developing in Fortnite, which kind of prompted me. I started, getting a little more in tune with what Epic was doing and all about, and noticed the Epic Mega Grant. So they're offering a ton of money, but not for education necessarily, but for whether it be developers or game designers, and they do include education in what they were looking for, which I was very pleased to see. So I thought, let me throw my hat in the ring and propose a grant. And the thing about it was a couple things. One is I was starting to prepare and create a game design class for our high school, which we didn't have. So this was going to be the first year I was going to be at the high school. So my thought immediately is like, wow, once I get up to the high school, there's so much more potential for kids to create really great content with tools like Unreal Engine. So I wrote the grant with the context. I think it was called something like Scalable Game Design from Fortnite Creative to Unreal Engine. and with the goal being to use both tools, but also to scaffold the learning and sort of get kids started and excited with Fortnite, and with an ultimate goal of getting kids to be able to use, Unreal Engine, which is an industry standard. And luckily, it's interesting because it caught their attention, like you had said before, that there was something interesting going on here potentially in education. And that started a whole slew of other conversations, which led to some great opportunities, and really piggybacked a lot on, Mike, what you were interested in. And it really, I think, just opened the door just a little wider. And they've been incredibly receptive. I've been doing some work with them on creating lesson plans. You've done some work with them creating lesson plans. We're going to be supporting them at South by Southwest EDU. I'll actually be in the booth with them for 3 days, showing what a fun conference it'll be, showing teachers how to use Fortnite Creative and other Unreal tools.
Can we just pause for a moment and think about how mind-blowing it is that Epic Games has a booth at an education conference?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It blew my mind at FETC, and it's still blowing my mind that Epic Games has a booth at like a mainstream K-12 education conference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're invested. Well, they're all in. You know what I mean? And from what I understand, Tim Sweeney, who's the CEO or founder, god of Epic, is, and Mark Rain, both are very invested in education and see great value and really, I think, want to do right by education, but also are smart as business people, I think, to know, let's train kids to use these powerful tools and then, become the next generation of developers. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking, Steve, that as I'm sitting at school some days and I get a notification from Twitch that you are and your class is actually doing activities, some of them having to do with Fortnite Creative, some of them having to do with Minecraft, and a variety of other things. But you're the only teacher that I know. I know teachers that stream, like Mike does, and some of our other friends do, but you're the only teacher I know that actually streams what's the content that's actually happening during school, or the examples of student artifacts, or all of those types of things, and streams it live while it's actually happening. People are play testing or iterating or whatever it might be. If someone's interested in that, what were the steps that it took to be able to get there? Because, I mean, it seems like a principal's nightmare for this to actually think, just because of the live stream, just it being live at that moment. But it's gone so well, and so many of us go in there not only to support you in what you're doing as far as your classes, but to also learn, like kind of see what is the latest things that people are actually working on, and what are you doing as far as in class. So can you talk to us more about that? Yeah,
well, that's the goal. I mean, I feel like transparency is very important in education. And I also, I love having people visit my classroom and have like real live teachers come, visit that want to start a program similar to mine. But why not make that available through the technology we have now, with streaming? I currently, what I'm doing is it's mostly me. It's generally me on screen, unless I have parent permission. And I actually am going to, I'm going to be more formal with that because I'd like to have permission for all my kids out of the gate, because then it just makes it easier to have kids just jump in and do stuff. I do have kids sometimes doing the streaming, but I'll typically turn the camera off. So some of the things they'll do is they'll either stream or record for YouTube some of the Let's Play or game reviews and things like that, as well as their projects, and as you've seen, I will. It's a lot of fun when we're at this point in the project where we're all beta testing things, and I could jump in and take people through what my kids are doing. I mean, I love showing what my students have done. It's pretty remarkable, and so I think on a simple level, I think just being mindful to monitor the chat, to to be understanding of what you can and can't do in terms of whether students should be in the stream. I think permission there is important, but I do feel strongly that it's really, I'm all about community building and things, and I love when people like you, Glenn, pop in and will either ask questions or comment. There's one guy who's like Dinner Beef. He's a great. He works with the Feed the Beast, and so he's a Minecraft developer, and he watches our stream all the time, and so often we'll just give a little bit of tidbits of information that help because he knows far more than I do.
Very
the
cool.
more we can do that kind of thing too. And Mike, when we were playing around with that streaming with the duck thing. I got to start using that more because I'd like to bring more people in. Like I've had, Adam Clark, I would have a question and he would come on to one of my streams and help me and my class, figure it out and things. So I think there's a lot of power in that. And, so I'd love to see more people doing it. I think it just, it invites people in. It, it starts to make me think of, imagine the possibilities if there's, we have a student in our school right now who is who unfortunately is ill, so is primarily homeschooled, but they purchased one of those robot things that is like a two-way like a web conferencing tool, but it moves around the room and stuff, so the kid can be part of class. I mean, why not have that? I could do that through the stream, right?
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And what about kids that are homeschooling but want to tap in and learn? And again, and I think, like, in other words, their being there only enhances both my teaching and the learning. So, it's been fun, and it's not always, it's messy sometimes, and that's good. I like to model the whole thing, right? Like, so if I'm making a mistake, if you're there, Glenn or Mike, and can help me debug some code, in real time, I think that's pretty cool too. So,
it's funny, we've talked about it. We've talked about your stream without you here. I don't think we've ever actually talked to you about you streaming. And one of the things that I come back to every once in a while, and now I'd love to just hear your thoughts on it, is this idea of trust. The idea of trust from the student's perspective, because I think there's something there, but also the idea of trust from you have bosses. You're not an island. You certainly report to people, and they certainly know that you're streaming the inside of your classroom. And then parents obviously know that you're doing this as well. And so talk a little bit about buy-in and trust and how you approach them to let them know this was going to happen, especially the administrators, because I'm sure that there are a ton of teachers out there that would love to do this and are even just, frankly, probably afraid to ask, to even say, and then heaven forbid your teacher, your principal, your whatever doesn't know what you're talking about at all. Heaven forbid, then you have to go through this whole process of explaining to them what streaming is.
Right.
So how did you actually get buy-in? I'm really interested in that because I think that is something that people would love to know about.
I think the thing you said first has most to do with it is the piece of trust, right? So I think it's a lot about understanding that I'm generally, like I said, I mean, a lot of it right now if I have parent permission, I think buy-in is easy, right? Because I think when you have parent permission, then administrators are don't worry because you've gone to that. And I have a permission slip that goes home. See, it started with, we were doing VR research in class, and of course I had to get all sorts of levels of permission to have my students involved in this research. So we had a permission slip for that. Then I started adding to that permission slip because rather than sending 8 million permission slips home, and the first year I added that I would be, to tweet from class and would like to, and with permission, your child could be in a picture. We don't put names and such. And if you would prefer they don't, that's something they can check off on the permission slip, and I honor that. Then when I started streaming, I just added that as well and explained what we're doing with that. And it does invite parents in, which I think, occasionally we have parents come more so when I'm streaming one of our esports matches, and then the kid will be able to say, hey, you can watch me, on the stream, and that's when we seem to get more parents in, but even at our, I've presented at board meetings where I've shared the Twitch stream and things like that. So I think, I think, you work hard to build that trust. I would like to think that administrators would be open to the idea, because I do think it brings great value, and again, transparency. There are things to be concerned about, but those things exist, everywhere. Like, in other words, if I have my chat there and, and something inappropriate comes on, we have to deal with and address that. Luckily, that hasn't really happened, but you could moderate the chat, and I have, I guess, whatever, some simple filter stuff going on. But anyway, yeah, I think it does come down to that trust. I think it comes down to seeing, the things that you're doing, and you know what? So even when it comes to people visiting my class, I mean, my district is excited about that, because they're starting to understand that, people are coming because they know something that we're doing and want to bring that to their school. And I think the same thing happens when we open it up through the stream. So
let's circle back. So you had mentioned that you had written some lessons for Fortnite, and I've written some lessons for Fortnite. Let's first talk about the actual lessons, because
sure.
I think some of these, and what you can do, maybe even there might be people, there probably are people who dabble in Minecraft Education Edition that listen to us, for sure.
Yeah.
So talk about your Rube Goldberg lesson, because it's sweet, and talk about how you can do that in Fortnite, and how it relates to what you can and can't do in Minecraft, because I think that there's an interesting comparison there.
Yeah. So, well, for one, yeah, I love the lesson. In fact, I wrote it with the premise of it being kind of a science and engineering lesson, because it covers topics like simple machines and things like that. But of course, then I kind of spun it to make it appropriate, worthwhile for my class also. And the main thing that I find value in it for my students that are learning game design is that it also encourages them to learn about the potential of automation in Minecraft by using, in Minecraft, in Fortnite, in this case, because of the triggers that, automate things happening, the devices, and things like that in Fortnite Creative. So the kids are, designing and creating these pretty intricate Rube Goldberg machines. And, again, with my class, probably the main learning goal always revolves around iterative design, and that's front and center in this, like everything else, because the kids are building their Rube Goldberg machine. Most of them use the ball to, as the main, the character, so to speak, that's going through the machine. So it becomes a lot of ramps, a lot of jumps and things like that, and they have to, modify their project continuously to make things, go where they intend for them to go. So they're learning a lot about the mechanics and the physics in Fortnite, because a ball will speed up and go off a ramp and it will not go where it's supposed to go, and then they have to rebuild part of it, or at least figure out where they want it to go before they build the next piece and whatnot. And they have a blast with it. And then interestingly, similar to the reverse was when kids started asking if they could use Fortnite in class. with this project, some kids have specifically said, hey, can we do it in Minecraft? So, the answer is always yes. So some of them are doing it in Minecraft. And the project works beautifully with either platform. I think Minecraft kids, are using a lot of things like command blocks and things to trigger stuff in the game. Really interesting things also, like, and it's funny, you probably know this, but a villager gets chased by a zombie, or a zombie gets chased by a villager, one of them. So I had one group of kids create this big tightrope as part of their thing, and I'm going to just go with it for a minute and say that it's the zombie chasing the villager, but the villager is moving, and there's a zombie that is making the villager move across the tightrope, and then at the end, something's going to happen. The villager's going to hit something, and it's going to trigger the next thing. So, the kids get so funny. Creative. Yeah. And in Fortnite, it's been really neat. In fact, if you could, in the show notes, my YouTube channel, which I'll give you, has examples of the student projects on both platforms, but just super, super cool. So it's a really fun assignment. I think it demonstrates a lot of what's possible with Fortnite creative mode, and as you can kind of sense, it's very appropriate for school. And when you look at these things, you realize that it's in the Fortnite world, but it's like this great example of what you can do in Fortnite creative that's got nothing to do with guns or anything.
I was thinking, Steve, that you mentioned Unreal Engine. Mm-hmm. And both of you guys are like super hyper nerds. Yes. And really know about things like Unreal Engine or the company Unreal. Can you take a step back and you said, okay, this is the industry standard. Mm-hmm. The industry standard of what? Because there's several different aspects to it, and it doesn't all have to do with video games. My brother works in the film mm-hmm. industry in California. They use the Unreal Engine. It's being used in all kinds of different things. Can you talk more about that, and as far as what's the connection between this game that we all know as Fortnite and then this engine that's kind of driving all of these things and so many other things?
Yeah, well, you're right. It is used for many things. It's used definitely for probably a lot of CGI type stuff, but definitely in film and video. It's definitely, and it is that, and is probably one of the industry standard tools for game design, and more and more. In fact, I even have we have a friend, Ben Kelly, who recently said that he's moving from one 3D game development environment to Unreal Engine, primarily because what he did was he did a search of what the popular games that we all know are made in, and it's pretty astounding how many of them are made right now in Unreal Engine. And you can make games for every platform, including VR and XR, and AR and stuff. So, but also, like you say, other industries are definitely using it. And on that note, as much as Mike and I might be, hyper nerds, I don't know a whole lot. Like, Unreal Engine is challenging to me, but I started going down the rabbit hole of their learning environment. And if you go to learn.unrealengine.com, I think that's what it is. I've been taking they have a great learn.unrealengine.com. Yeah, they have a great, portal with tons of classes, and badging and such. So I've been excited to be doing that lately. Yeah. And, but it is, like you say, it's definitely, and 3D, just design too. And then another one of their products is called Twin Motion, which they recently acquired. And that's like a visualization tool, that's pretty easy to use to create, great ideas of like, let's say we want to design. And one of the lessons we're putting in the portal is design, a skate park in Twin Motion. And it has the kids really thinking about things like, let's add some green, environmentally friendly aspects to this park. And the kids are designing and then creating these beautifully visualized, skate parks or what have you.
If you actually want a really good example of how ubiquitous Unreal Engine is in just like the digital design industry, I actually have a really good example. My friend is the head of IT for Southern Ontario, if not Canada's largest luxury car dealer chain. I guess they have a Porsche dealership and a Ferrari dealership, and they sell all manner of luxury vehicles, and they sell McLarens. Okay, so McLarens are super expensive, and the cheapest McLaren's probably like $120,000, $130,000. And when you go to the dealership to buy a McLaren, he was telling me you go into a room, a fairly large room, like a theater room, and it's got like recliners in it, and they have like a server, like a waitress or whatever that comes and
let's go
will bring you a coffee. Yeah, exactly. And then they will pull down there's a giant screen that comes down, and they have like the representative with them, and the representative has this like super $5,000 high powered laptop, and you build the car in like a hyper realistic model environment that's powered by Unreal Engine, and you specify every little piece of the car how you want it to look, and the person running the computer changes the settings, and it changes the giant car that you're seeing in front of you on the screen, and it's all like rendered in like hyper beautiful environments. Wow. and they can put it on like a road that's driving through or whatever, and it's all powered by Unreal Engine. So that's like a non-gaming,
right,
like just kind of industry related example of using Unreal Engine and I think they actually, on the Unreal Engine website, they talk about the McLaren design experience a little bit too, which is super interesting. So that's actually a pretty classic example of this that I always found was mind blowing. I'd love to go in, even though I'll never have the money to buy a McLaren. Maybe, fingers crossed, but at least, I'd love to go see this experience, because I think it's really, really, really quite cool. So it's a path that our students may be interested in taking that doesn't necessarily involve game design or video games at all, but does, involve this digital creation aspect that's really, really interesting, and is powered completely by Unreal. And
how cool is it when our kids start to learn this in school and like leave, high school with a marketable skill, developing an Unreal. So, I mean, that's why it's so great that, when we focus on, like we say, industry standard, but the reality is we're talking about, such great skills for our kids to have, that if they're going to go out, these are the tools that they'll be most likely using. So if they have those skills, it's just amazing.
So Epic Games has dug in pretty deep in the education space, and we've both tweeted about something that they're doing that we want to kind of promote here tonight. They're running a contest. And we want to get the word out about this, and so talk about the contest a little, about where they can, what they have to do, what they can win,
right,
and how they sign up for this contest that's basically sponsored by Unreal Engine and Epic Games.
So that's a lot of this work has been leading right towards that. So the lesson plans that we've created and things have been sort of a model for what they're looking, to give an opportunity for teachers to present. So basically, educators who are either using or interested in using, right now it's their three primary products that we're talking about, which is Fortnite Creative, Unreal Engine, and Twinmotion, all fall under their Teach with Interactive 3D or Learn with Interactive 3D contest. So basically, there's a template up online that you can kind of follow just to get the structure of what they're looking for a lesson plan. And they're accepting submissions. I think they've extended it to, what was it, like May something?
Yeah, May something, yeah.
And so basically, it's a function of submitting a lesson plan that uses one of those tools. And really, I mean, I hope people don't overthink it, because the reality is the goal is to have lesson plans that teachers can find on this portal and use. So, it's like, I think sometimes we get in a thing where we think if we're submitting something for a contest, it has to be way over the top. And I don't think that's really going to help anybody's cause, because it's less likely to be really used in the classroom. But the goal would be for teachers who could either use your lesson or remix it, a little bit for their needs. The prizes are crazy. The grand prize is $25,000, I believe. I'm going to the site now, actually.
That's a real amount of money.
Yeah. And then there are 3 second prizes of $5,000 each, 5 third prizes of $2,500 each, and 10 honorable mentions of $500 each. So it's like 19 people are going to walk away with at least $500. And
sweet V-Bucks cash.
Yeah,
there. That's what that is.
And the reality is, it's real cash money. You don't even you don't even have to use it for V-Bucks. But I think you'll probably put in the show notes also the link for the contest. Oh, it says now that it'll run till May 31st, 2020. Yeah. It is currently, I believe, open to U.S. teachers that are working in school settings and what have you. So just take a little look at the rules. I think,
no Canadians.
Unfortunately,
sorry,
I do hope that
I tried.
I
tried.
In time, maybe that will change. I think it's like one of those things where, from their perspective of legality and such, I don't know if it, whatever. But the goal will be not only to hopefully win a great prize, but also to contribute to this great platform that they're investing in and developing. And, I come from the days of when Valve threw their hat in the ring for a brief moment with Portals, which was an amazing program. I'm grateful that I snuck in during the short window that it was a thing, because I've been using Portal 2 with my students, for many years. Sadly, they abandoned that, and it's nice to see Epic, coming around and saying, we really do want to really invest in education, and we want to be there and support teachers and students. So I think, I think they're really, seeing and embracing, an incredible opportunity here.
So, big contest. We're going to put the information for people to sign up for it in the show notes, for sure. We leave people with one question we've never asked you before. So, but we'd love to actually, I think we'd actually love to know your answers. What are Steve Isaacs, what are 3 pieces of media, be it a book, or a video, or a song, or because I know you're a music lover, a live music lover specifically, or anything, any piece of media that is driving your thinking, is influencing you, maybe has influenced you in the past. 3 pieces of media.
All right. It's funny because when I think of media, I'm like, well, what am I watching now? And that doesn't necessarily apply to what's driving or inspiring, my teaching. But Ready Player One, favorite book ever. Definitely influential, in my thinking. I don't want us to get to that post-apocalyptic place where we have to, where it becomes, what it was. But I think I think there's a lot in that book that is very real. Let's see, what other media? I'm super into esports right now, so I guess at least from an angle of being aware of what's coming down the pipe and kind of following, I think that's big. I've been collecting a lot of resources there and reading. But let's see. So you want other media though? Gosh. Well, just video games inspire me to no end. And maybe I'll point at, and if I'm sorry that I'm not being overly specific, but like the indie game scene strikes me because it allows me to kind of see and show my students what is possible on that level as opposed to AAA. So that plays a big part. And then, I'm also been playing a little bit of Beat Saber lately.
Nice.
I don't know if it's inspiring. Again, these are all things for me that, just get me thinking about what's possible for my students and such. But
awesome.
I could probably answer it better with some thought, but
I like just pulling it on people.
Yeah, of course, that's how you should do it.
Yeah, totally. All right, so thanks for joining us, Steve. This has been awesome.
Thanks, guys. It's always awesome.
Thanks for listening to OnEducation. My name is Glenn Irvin. My co-host is Mike Washburn. OnEducation is part of the On Podcast Media Network. You can listen to this show and many others by great educators like Monica Burns, Mike Matera, Tisha Richmond, and many more by visiting onpodcastmedia.com. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at OnEducationPod. Mike is at Mr. Washburn on Twitter, and I can be found on Twitter at IrvSpanish. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/OnEducationPod. We're also on Instagram at OnEducationPod. Want to support OnEducation? Visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/OnEducation. There, you can get access to full videos of the podcast and so much more. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or a review in Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. It helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Classcraft, for supporting us. Check out classcraft.com/OnEducation to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening, stay awesome, and see you soon.